Ayo, back at it again with another video. Thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. So, this video is about Atacms and the war in Ukraine. So, Atacms, a little bit about the Atacms long range missile for the army in the HIMARS launcher. Put it in the HIMARS launcher, put the missile, the little module in the launcher, and then this is the Atacms missile. The range, the red outline, the shorter range, the yellow orangish line is for the longer range version of the Atacms. This is probably a better map from the Wall Street Journal. The Block 1 version has a 103 mile range. The Block 1A version has a 186 mile range. So 100 mile range gets you into the land bridge here in the Crimea. The longer version, Block 1A, 186 mile range, gets you all of Crimea and the Kerch Strait Bridge. So this is the map in Ukraine. The Ukrainians have been pushing towards Tokmak in their counteroffensive. They've taken Botne, fighting around Novoprokopivka, fighting in Verbove, but Robotny here is under Ukraine. Nope, that's not what I wanted to click. I wanted to measure distance, not add to business. So from Robotny to Tokmak is about 13 miles. And Robotny to Melitopol is about roughly 50 miles. So there we go. So the HIMARS launcher as it stands can reach Tokmak and can reach Melitopol, because roughly the HIMARS launcher as it stands right now has roughly about a 50-mile range. So Melitopol, Tokmak is already in fire control, and just from the HIMARS launcher as it stands. But the Atacms can get you that 100-mile range, 186-mile range. From that standpoint, you can hit Berdyansk, you can hit Mariupol, you can hit Melitopol, Berdyansk, Mariupol, and even strike into Crimea. So if you put it towards Kherson, you could also strike deep into Crimea, the northern part of Crimea. So depending on where you put the launcher, you can have some serious firepower in this land bridge. The reason there's been some hesitancy is obviously the longer range could strike Russian, territory. Another reason is the price. In fiscal year 1998, cost $820,000, but in fiscal year 2022, the cost is close to $1.5 million. So the Atacms is very costly, and the United States doesn't have a whole lot of them, mainly because they're not in production anymore. And the pending arrival of the U.S. Army's new precision strike missile, the PRISM, is starting to come into production here in the near future. So the Atacms, as far as I'm aware of, is no longer in production, and the U.S. Army is starting to produce new PRISM missiles. So there's not a whole lot of Atacms. They cost a lot. So there's been some hesitancy providing them to Ukraine because there's not a whole lot, they cost a lot, and the U.S. isn't making them any longer, as far as I know. But then also the possibility that could strike Russian territory if the United States were to provide the longer range version. So there's been some hesitancy. But I want to focus on this article. This is from Business Insider. This is from September 22nd. Zelensky's visit to the United States. Zelensky says Ukraine has a comprehensive plan to liberate Bakhmut and 2 other key cities. So there's already a comprehensive plan in place to liberate Bakhmut over here. But the 2 cities that I think he's talking about are Tokmak and Melitopol, because that's been the main driver. Because they're counteroffensive, they've tried to focus on this area. They've had fighting around Verbove, they've had fighting around Robatny and Novoprokopivka, this Orakiv axis. So I think the 2 cities that he's really talking about are Tokmak and Melitopol, because that would ultimately sever the land bridge that the Russians have to Crimea. So that's just my perspective. I firmly support U.S. giving Ukraine Atacms to wreak havoc on Russian logistics. So that is my perspective. I firmly support Atacms for Ukraine, and I think the Ukrainians have put themselves in a good position to disrupt Russian logistics and potentially sever the land bridge to Crimea. So with that, that is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Deuces.